Laura Shaw, welcome to Being. Thank you for being here.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I'm so happy that we're finally connecting.
I know. So just so the audience knows, Laura and I know each other through a mutual friend named Lex Scully. We connected many, many years ago. We're thinking 20 years ago.
Even more, we
might
met
have been
even
more
than that.
Yes. And we've sort of been orbiting each other's trajectory from afar, threatening to get together for a conversation, which we booked for today. And just when we got on, I'm like, wait a minute, we should be recording this for a podcast. And so here we are, completely unrehearsed, completely raw and vulnerable. Laura Shaw, welcome.
Thank you.
So what is going on with you? I've been following your trajectory from afar. Like, tell me what's going on?
Gosh, where do we even start? I'm in Golden, BC.
Okay.
And I've been here since 2006.
Okay.
And I think for me, when I had twins when my daughter was 2.
Oh, wow.
And I lost the plot.
As you do.
I think I was just breastfeeding and crying all the time. Tandem breastfeeding and crying, and just I really actually felt like I was losing it. I mean, I think I did lose it. I was so tired and so off. And I remember thinking, I need to wake up.
Right.
I don't want a secret mantra. I don't want a yoga pose, even though I love mantra and I love yoga. And I highly recommend both. But at that moment, I was like, I need to find a deeper ground here because none of this is working. And
what did you do next? Like, what does it mean for you to wake up? How did you know what that even meant? How did you know there was more?
I didn't really know. I mean, I didn't even really know about enlightenment. I always had put that in a whole other category, a whole other continent.
Right. Totally. That's for Buddha and shit in the East.
And finding a guru and
yeah.
It just seemed, I was like, I knew though that we're not our thoughts and we're not our emotions and we're not our bodies. I had known that because I've been meditating since I was in my late teens.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But I still didn't know what I was. It's like, well, if I'm not all those things, what am I?
What the hell am I? That's the age-old question, isn't it?
What am I? Not even who am I? That's almost even too much for me. Just what am I? What are we?
Yeah.
What are we? Because if it's a good thing I'm not my mind or my emotions or my body, because none of those are working very well. Right?
And then we build these identities like mom or husband or provider or, things that we attach to and we think that's who we are, these identities. Yeah. And then we get to middle age and then we realize we're none of those things. And then it's usually that's what a midlife crisis is, and I definitely had one. I'm like, what? I'm none of those things. Who the hell am I? Right.
Yeah. And the effort to hold up any of that identification, the effort. And I remember doing a beautiful session with Kath Jeffries.
Oh, right. Okay.
You know Kath and Amy Jeffries?
That sounds familiar.
They're camp people, but Kath wrote a book on awakening in education.
Cool.
And I did a session with her, and I remember talking about at that time I was working as an academic instructor at the College of the Rockies here.
Okay.
And we did a session, and it was really revealed that was so much about identity.
Right.
Like having a role that was, something that could be acknowledged. And I was hanging on to that, and it was so humbling.
Wow. And so what were the next steps going from?
So the next step was I met Gangaji and Eli Jackson Bear. And these are teachers that they're very very clear self-inquiry, really asking the question, what is here? Like really very direct, well, what is going on? What's here? And just coming to those deeper layers of the reality that's actually here, not the one that we're constantly playing out in our head.
Wow. And how do you tell the difference? That's the question. Right? Because there's so much that seems real, but it's illusory. And then coming to something that feels meaningful, that feels like true, it's difficult to get to that point, and to really trust it too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think in working with them and learning from them, and I've since gone through their Eli's school in Ashland, Oregon, and that's sort of part of the work that I'm doing now with clients.
Okay.
But one of his teachings that's coming to me now is anything that comes and goes that's not the absolute truth. Not that it's not valid or important. And it's even real, but not the absolute truth. Right. So any emotion that comes through, that's real. We experience that, but the stories we're telling ourselves about ourselves because of that emotion, that's where we can look. That's where the inquiry can happen and say, okay, I am actually telling a story here with me at the center of it. And that already should be a clue that, there's something we can really be even more truthful about.
Yeah. And then once you start to become aware of the stories, and there are so many of them, and usually most of them are negative, like negative self-talk stories around self-worth or doubt or fear or, a million different things, you realize that there's an opportunity to change them and replace them with more empowering stories about yourself or the world, right?
Yeah. And even before replacing them, I would say that mindful awareness to call ourselves on it, like recognize that story is happening. And like you said, they're usually really painful. Right. And so it's an opportunity to actually like attend to that and look at that narrative and acknowledge the pain of that. And then a new story might come out, but it might not even be needed.
Right. And I think the reason a lot of people do not do this work is because it is so painful to look at yourself in that way and to face your pain or your trauma or your fear. And so they avoid it. Like I was talking about earlier in the midlife crisis scenario, when you recognize you're none of these identities, but wait a minute, who am I? There's a certain panic that comes in when you have to look at yourself at those deep layers, because you inherently know that you're going to uncover darkness or fear or pain. And we're like, fuck that. I don't want to look at it. Right. So I'm just going to pretend like this isn't happening. I'm going to, buy myself a sports car or, go on a drinking binge or whatever it is to distract yourself from facing that.
Yes. We're terrified of what we're going to discover. And I think for me that, the Enneagram is a big part of this teaching as well. So learning about the Enneagram, which really is a very powerful tool for self-inquiry.
Personality types and traits, right? Is that what that is?
Yeah, it's like, I mean, there's lots of different interpretations of the Enneagram, but character fixation. Okay. So really these egoic patterns that we can actually learn about, and then we can actually overhear ourselves playing out.
Right.
And so once you kind of learn about the Enneagram and then you hear yourself, or you feel, for me, my fixation's probably similar to yours, that we move towards.
Right.
Like we move towards others. And so now when I catch that, I can just stop. So it's more vulnerable and it's more real. So you're not interacting with my fixation. You're not interacting with that skill that I've
Mm.
developed over a lifetime to make things smooth and easy.
Right, right,
But instead it's like, no, I'm gonna unveil a bit, and
right. And just
this is what you get.
wow, what a journey and a process it is of self-discovery and personal development. And like it like I said before, it can be so painful and challenging, but it's so rewarding. Like when you peel back those layers and you get to something that feels true and essential and grounded and rooted in something, it's like that knowingness, like, wow, that is so powerful. And then when you begin to operate from there, and like you said, you let go of those illusory masks that we wear, and you just allow yourself to be yourself. It's like, that is pure freedom. There's pure freedom in that.
Yes, anything
Right.
else is shaky ground. Like,
Totally.
it's not sustainable.
Yeah. But that's where most people live, is on that shaky ground, which is why they're so, caught up in the seasons and the climate. They get pushed around by any gust of wind. You don't have
Yeah.
that solid foundation, so you get
Yeah.
triggered so easily, and so your life is a roller coaster, and you never feel like you have any solid ground. It's like, fuck, that was me for 45 years of my life.
Yeah, and you, Pat, I mean, you've gone through such a transformation, and I know
Certainly
what
have.
our life was like. I know what the culture of our
Yes.
social life was like
We were
back in the
partiers.
day.
Yeah, I was a partier. I can't speak for you, but I was a partier. But like I say, is I was never a violent or dramatic drunk. I was party Patty. I was the life of the party. I was like,
Yeah.
let's celebrate life kind of vibe. But underneath all that, I was hiding. I was hiding from pain and fear and stuff I didn't want to look at, until I got to a point, in my early 40s, where I'm like, wait a minute, the alcohol is catching up with me. It's starting to, ruin my body. It's ruining my relationships, my emotional stability, my finances. I'm like, okay, this cannot continue. What is it I don't want to look at? And so, once you have the courage to say, okay, there is stuff. And I knew from childhood, there was something so powerful about me, but it scared the shit out of me, because it meant taking full responsibility. It meant showing up vulnerably. It meant, going out in the world and risking criticism and ridicule and scrutiny. And it's like, all that is like way too scary. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go have some beers with my boys and just not deal with it, And so that went on for my whole life until I got to a place where I'm just like, okay, I need to fully go inside and look at this and just, remove all the distractions, all the alcohol, everything that I've been using as numbing out agents or crutches, and just really tune into what it is that's, I'm afraid of, or what I was running from, and stop running. And the most beautiful part is, once you do that, once you turn inward and you look with, and this is what I, with my clients, you have to be careful not to look, because with guilt or shame or judgment, because that's very easy to do, you have to look with compassion and love and curiosity, and if you can manage to do that, what you uncover is like, okay, it wasn't really that scary. It's my inner child, or something happened when I was a kid that was a survival mechanism, that stayed in my unconscious until adulthood, that I never really took a second look at. And now I have an opportunity to shine the light of my awareness on it and heal it, or transmute it, or release it. And like I said, that's where true freedom comes in. So yeah, that's kind of been my journey.
Oh my gosh, and did you do that on your own? Or
I
did you have, I mean, I know you have such a
Yeah.
beautiful web of people around you, but
Yes, exactly.
this work, this
Yeah,
deep working.
it was, I never did a 12-step program, if that's what you're referring to. With the alcohol part, I did it by myself. But like you say, I had, friends, mentors, coaches, plant medicine, my own practices, all sort of supporting me in ways externally to, really ground me into it. But it's a individual practice, though. You have to go through it by yourself,
Mhm.
which is terrifying, But again,
Mhm.
I encourage everybody to do it, because it's so rewarding. And on the other side is magic and freedom and peace and joy. It doesn't mean you're not going to have challenges, or you're not going to be scared, or there's not going to be anxiety. All that's just part of life. But the way you respond to it is, different fundamentally, right?
It's so different. And I think
Yeah.
we somewhere along the line, we get the belief that we don't have the capacity
Mm,
to handle the grief or the shame or the guilt or the
yeah.
fear or whatever comes up. And I mean, it's true that we're culturally, we kind of, even though it's changing now, we kind of stay within a certain spectrum,
Totally.
right? And so
Yes.
we're taught that anything that's outside here is like no-go zone.
No-go zone.
But actually, we do have the capacity, just like, and I love that you brought up inquiring with compassion
So
and
important.
love and curiosity, and that's it. And
Yeah.
that's the other part of what I've been doing a lot of, is teaching mindfulness and
Yeah.
self-compassion.
Cool.
And
So
that
needed. So needed in this world.
because we attack, right? Like
Yeah.
anything that we perceive to be flawed,
Yeah.
the initial response is to attack it. But as soon
Mm.
as we bring in that tone of, well, what is this?
Yeah. Curiosity, right?
Yeah.
And you start listening. And that's what I talk about with emotions, is when you feel a quote unquote negative emotions, things that are uncomfortable, the first thing you want to do is just push them away. It's like, I don't want to deal with that. That's scary, uncomfortable, painful. But if you allow it to sit, you allow it to be there, first of all, it dissipates more quickly, the anxiety or whatever it is. But second of all, you're able to distill the wisdom of why that emotion is there in the first place.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And even reframe the experience of that emotion and the way we relate to it. Like, it's actually these things that we're so afraid to look at when we're really with them. Like you're saying, there's wisdom there and there's beauty there. And then you said too before that you always knew there was something powerful about you, but it was too much or something and you hid it.
Yeah.
And that when you actually look and you're like, oh my God, there's a sun in there. There's a bright shining sun in there.
Totally.
That I've been hiding and rejecting and judging but it's like,
but then the next question is, where do we learn that? Why are we scared to show that part of ourselves? And for me, it was like, you're born into a system that if you're born in a hospital, you're vaccinated, you go into school, all of these things are programming you to be compliant and not shine your light too brightly and just be a good member of society. Right. And so you learn very quickly, very early, that some parts of you, some behavior is acceptable and some aren't. And for me, growing up Irish Catholic is like, okay, you don't want to shine too brightly because you'll overshadow other people, and that's egotistical and that's vain, and those are sins, right? And that I internalized that. I'm like, okay, I gotta tamp this down. I can't shine too brightly. I'm gonna, get myself in trouble and attract attention. I don't want to do that, So I learned very quickly to cover it up. Yeah.
Yeah, this conditioning and I mean, religious certainly, but from so many other places too, we just internalize it as truth.
Yeah, exactly.
Even if we're working on it, even those of us that are working on waking up and deepening, we are still governed by conditioning.
Totally. Oh my God. I've spent years peeling back my conditioning, and it's just like an onion. There's another layer and another layer and another layer, and it just keeps going. But that's part of the fun. It's like we never stop growing. We never stop evolving. We never stop learning, and just being okay and in that uncertainty or that discomfort or not knowing. We have to just be okay with it. Because so many of us are striving for control or certainty or security or safety, and those are all illusions. Those don't exist in nature, right? Fundamentally. So it's like we're grasping, trying to attach onto things, and it never works. And so we're constantly feeling ungrounded.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, and then to discover we do have the capacity to live with uncertainty.
Yes.
Actually, when we really open to that, it is freedom, because it's the truth.
It's the truth. Exactly. So this is so awesome. It's so good to see you, first of all, and just to connect with you, and then be able to, record this conversation and share it is just so powerful. So thank you for being open to that last minute invitation. It's so awesome. I'd love to hear more about your journey. So breastfeeding 2 infants, crying, knowing that there's more and you want to wake up. What was next for you? How did you move into the next steps?
So I started watching Gangaji videos while I was breastfeeding. And the first video that I saw, actually a friend of mine had told me about her years prior, and I just didn't listen. Right. I was just like, that sounds like a guru name. Like, I rejected it, to be totally honest. Yeah. I was like, no, I'm not following some. And I think I can have a tendency here is to not be controlled by others. Right. Like which is, yeah, that can come to a detriment for sure. Mm. But I watched this one video and she just stopped me dead in my tracks.
Awesome.
I was like, I'm going to listen to this woman. And so I started I was crocheting and breastfeeding and listening to Gangaji, and then from a distance trying to be with my 2-year-old.
And cook scrambled eggs and make a cup of tea.
I'd throw a stuffy, we'd play. Oh yeah, it was just such a crazy time.
Oh my God.
It was so crazy. But I was so open to this awareness. And she, she is not, she doesn't even call herself a teacher. Mm. Her awareness is so deep that she recognizes that she's not above anybody. Mm. And I've never heard her say anything that has brought up any conflict in my body. Mm. And so I was listening and just feeling something starting to root from that. And then a friend of mine said, I'm going to Maui to go see Gangaji. And I know that you don't have, you probably couldn't make that happen for yourself right now. But what if I paid for your plane ticket and your hotel and you come for a weekend retreat? Wow. And I was like, I can't say no, but how can I say yes? I have these I felt like such a mammal. You're really getting the real and raw here.
I love it. Bring it on. Nothing but real and raw on this podcast. I love it.
Oh my God.
The full mammalian.
And so I said yes.
Good for you.
Of
course.
And I took a red-eye flight. I got on a bus from Golden, went to Calgary, took a red-eye flight, and then the next morning I was at Gangaji and Eli's feet.
Wow.
And it was just so powerful. And at the end of that first day, Eli, at that point, I wasn't even really that aware of. It was Gangaji who I was there to listen to, and then Eli's there too. And he led this inquiry at the end of the first day. And there was so little to break through, not because I was profoundly wise. It was because I was profoundly tired.
It worn down your resistance.
Yeah, there was no ego to break through.
Right.
Because it was so worn down.
Right.
And I just remember in that there was this feeling that there was all this love coming at me from all directions, from above me, coming at me. And I was like, no, this isn't for me. This must be for someone else, was the experience that I had. Mm-hmm. And then finally there was something in me that was like, okay, fine. That wall broke. I was like, okay, yes, I'll take it.
All right. Yes.
And the experience in that moment, and this is an experience that came and went. So back to that question of what is really true. Mm. But this experience of being flooded and simultaneously realizing, oh my God, it's coming from me. Mm. It was it can make me weepy.
Right.
It was so profound. And so that experience came and went, but it informed something so deep in me. Mm. And that love was so so out of this world that I remember in that particular retreat, there was this woman who was grieving her daughter. And the insight that I had, I thought of her in that moment. I was like, oh my gosh, death, nothing. Piece of cake. Death is nothing compared to this. Like, it was so deep. And so I feel like for me, I've been, even though that experience went and I went back home and I carried a bliss for sure for a while, but then I eventually got tired again. And
of course, as you do.
But there's been so much more of a receptivity here to really truly inquiring and being open to the possibility that maybe this ego isn't the truth. Like, maybe everything that's believed here can actually be questioned.
Yes. So that feeling of bliss, that awareness that you had, excuse me, at that retreat, I know it's the tendency is for it to fade and for patterns and life and stress and everything to cover it up again. But I feel like once you've sort of uncovered that layer, there's a knowingness and awareness that you can come back to in moments of stress or trying times, and just like, okay, I've felt this before, and that's how I encourage clients or people to meditate, is that's what it is. It's a practice to coming back to a centered, grounded space, absent of external influence. And so when you are out in the world and shit's going crazy, you know how to get back to center. You've practiced it, right? So it's a lot easier to do.
Yeah, it's right here.
It's right there, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's undoing. Like, it's a process of like letting go of everything we're holding up or carrying, and just
surrendering.
Yeah.
That's been a big word. I actually wrote a full album called Surrender.
Did you? Oh, I can't wait to hear it.
Oh yeah. At the depths of my, dark night of the soul, at the very bottom, just like, I was so grateful that I had that outlet, the creative aspect to express the depth of pain that I was feeling. I don't know how other people go through this. And again, I'm so grateful that I had it, but I just needed to let this out in some way, for it to be heard, for it to be put out into the world, and that was part of my healing, is to transmute it through the music. And so all of my experience, all of the pain went into that album, which was so therapeutic. It's just a turning point. And again, I'm so grateful for it. And one of the times we first connected is when you came with a song to my house, and we recorded it probably 25 years ago now, or something crazy like that, for the passing of Michelle Trudeau, who was a mutual friend, and called Raven, right? That's what it was called. Do you still have that song?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Good for you.
Yeah.
Good memory. I don't know where that recording went, and I can't remember the song.
Oh, wow.
Which is such a indicator that it really was, like you're saying, like a way to move with that grief and that loss. And we were so young, a death like that to someone so dear.
Yeah.
It really, really rocked me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how has creativity played a part in your journey?
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because I can see how there can be a tendency to want to perform, and there can be a tendency to want to elicit a positive response.
Right.
In that.
Right. An ego motivation.
Yeah, a bit of an ego motivation. And so I kind of pulled away from performing music. I did perform quite a bit when I first moved to Golden. I was doing some gigs and stuff around town, and
cool.
And it was great. And I love singing harmony. I love music.
Me too.
It's such a performance, though, it's a bit of a trickier thing for me.
Tricky on the inside, you mean? Like,
yeah, tricky on the inside. I mean, actually, no, it's free on the inside. Like when I really let myself just play, and it's there. like the love for that and the love for performance is there, but I think I can still, because I had so much social anxiety.
Mm.
And so getting in front of an audience and just being like, now I can't, it's like the courage to just shine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And be so naked.
Yeah.
Was challenging for me. But I think creativity for me too comes through writing. And actually after I went to that first retreat of meeting Gangaji and Eli, I wrote and wrote and wrote. And I started a blog, and that's
awesome.
Put it on my website, laurapshaw.com.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll put all these notes in the show notes, all these links in the show notes. But yeah, that's amazing.
And that helped me integrate this understanding as well. Like it helped me really deepen in this realization of what I was touching that was beyond thought or emotion or physical sensation. And then so much just grew from that. But I still find writing is a place where I can really connect with that artistry that feels so good to the soul.
Yes. Beautiful.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I echo what you said about performance. I didn't perform for many, many years. And then I started performing again around 5 years ago. And it's been again, coming back to how creativity was my best friend going through the darkest parts of my life. Cause I would show up at a gig and I'd be exhausted. I'd be, in pain. I'd be sad. I'd be in grief, all these emotions present. And I was like, there's no way I can do this. I can't get up there and just like bare my soul and put all this energy out. I don't have it. And then I get up there and I do it 10 minutes into the gig, 30 minutes into the gig. After that flow of energy started moving through me, it's like, oh my God, this is my home. This is my meditation. This is where I get to process everything that's been going on. And so the more I felt into that, it's like, okay, the more I can show up in this way vulnerably and shine my light and just be authentic on stage, the more it gives the audience permission to do it for themselves, so and that to me was just like, okay, I have to keep showing up in this way. And, I've had so much great feedback because you become like a beacon, it's like, it's not like I'm shining my light to, hey, look at me. It's like, this is me, real and authentic. If you want to join this energy, the invitation is open. If you don't, totally cool as well, but at least I'm showing up and inviting people in, and the people that do come in, they're just like, yes, I needed this. Thank you. And there's a communion, a co-creation in it. And it's like, those moments got me through some dark times. So again, I'm so grateful. Yeah.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Yeah, it's so important to keep that alive. I mean, and I've been obviously raising these three little munchkins. The twins are 7 now.
Oh, wow.
My daughter's 9.
Oh my God, you've been busy.
So in that time, it's been like, the guitar is still out. It might have a thin layer of dust on it.
Well, we might have to crack it out today if you're up for it.
But it's out, and the piano. And more piano, and so music's happening. It's definitely happening, a few times a week.
Good. Awesome.
Yeah.
Amazing. That's great to hear. It's great.
But you're reminding me.
Yes.
It does. I know what you're talking about. Like when you're connected to your soul.
Yeah.
And it opens it up. And
And actually, that just reminded me of a friend, Lindsay Sikornik, who I interviewed on episode 7. She was going through a difficult time, another person from Toronto, and they were coming down here, thinking about moving here, a lot of other factors going on. And she used to come see me play. And years later, she was a fabulous mentor for me, helped me through some very dark times. And she said something to me the other day, is that when I didn't even realize I was doing it at the time, but when she was going through her darkest moments and she'd come to see me play, she felt so inspired because she could feel my connection to spirit or source, within myself. And it gave her permission to go there in her own journey and her own practice. And so that for me is like, wow, if I can touch one person and invite them to go deeper within themselves and to explore themselves on a deeper level, that is like, that's it for me. It's so beautiful.
It's so beautiful. And I
Yeah.
think that I'm so happy we're talking about this, because I think people don't explore creativity enough.
I totally agree.
It just might not be part of their repertoire. They might not have grown up with it. And
yeah. Well,
it's
it's
not
also
something.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it's not something that, I value it so much. Art and music and dance. Dance has always been a big part of my life too.
Yeah.
But culturally, we don't necessarily value those things.
Totally.
Top of the line. And yet hearing you talk, it's like, yes, to direct people and to offer that and say, even that question, how are you fueling your creativity? How are you letting that out?
Totally. Yeah, it actually went, I was in a room on Clubhouse. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Clubhouse. It's the new social media. It's pretty freaking cool, actually, because it's just a bunch of people in a room and having a live conversation. So I was in a room last night with a guy named Adam Roa, who's a powerhouse for love and creativity. I've met him a couple of times. He's incredible. But he was talking about how he believes art and creative expression to be like the technology that's inherent in all of us, that is the most powerful thing we can do to shift our consciousness and into awareness. And like you say, in the system we grow up in, creativity and art are viewed as second-class citizens. They're sort of like, oh, if we have time for that, let's focus on the science and the math and the literacy, which are important, obviously. But it's a tragedy that we beat the creativity out of our children by telling them to shut up and sit down and just follow the rules, right?
Yeah.
And so that was another thing for me, is like, okay, I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to get in trouble. I'm just going to do what they tell me. And so your creativity is stifled. And so where one person might want to speak out and to use their voice, they're not encouraged to. And then that trend continues into adulthood and they just abandon it, because it's not a vehicle to make money. It's not a macroeconomic tool. And that's what we're taught to do, is like, be a good citizen, pay your taxes, all that kind of shit. So
yes, it's definitely not seen as important as STEM.
Yeah, STEM, exactly. Yeah.
Which are important, and neither of us are arguing that. But
no, totally. I did a degree in math. I love it. It was amazing.
Yeah. Yes.
But I think it's important to say that I think not everybody is going to be a musician or a writer or a dancer. Like those are some forms of creativity, but everybody is creative in some way, and that couldn't mean anything. There's so many manifestations of it. Like even at the fundamental level, we're creating our reality by the way, the stories that are playing in our head, right? Like the things that we're saying to ourselves, like the thoughts and the actions that we take, we are creating our lives. So in that sense, everybody's a creator.
Yes.
So, and that's kind of been my journey, is to what's the relationship between those two, like self-expression and creating your reality, and how can we use both of them to create something more true and beautiful and just for ourselves and everybody at the same time.
Yes. And oh man, I trust creativity more than I trust any image that we produce about ourselves. The creativity that's here right now, that's vulnerable and intelligent and fully present and not contrived. Like that is much closer to who we actually are.
100%. Like this conversation is a co-creation. Your energy is inspiring me to, and vice versa. And it's like a synergy where we're both, encouraging new things to arise. And that's the beauty of collaboration in humanity. I think that's something that we're missing deeply, is that connection. And even more so through everything that's going on right now, the separation and the isolation is just amplifying that. So coming back to a sense of community and collaboration and creativity is so important right now.
It's so important. And I think that's why I was so drawn to reach out to you now, because I knew that you're also supporting other people. And it's like, okay, can I take a peek in your toolkit?
Totally. And vice versa. I want to hear more about what you're doing. I'm happy to share it. It's like none of them are secrets. It's just, I think, I think we're all talking about the same thing when it comes to mindfulness and personal development, or however you want to describe it. We just have different approaches, different perspectives, different tools, but we're all talking about the same thing, which is, to me, cultivating self-awareness.
Yeah.
Removing or becoming aware of the masks and the conditioning and the programming and the fear and the trauma that's all happening beneath the surface. Like really coming alive within ourselves and being aware of everything that's going on and being okay with everything that's going on. Even the darkest parts of ourselves. And then operating from that place of grounded, healed wholeness, and moving into the world through there rather than fear or ego or attachment, And
that's right.
It's really simple, but it's not easy.
That's right. And the effect of embodying that is so powerful, even if nobody ever sees it.
Yeah. Totally.
Even if you came into that, and I've seen some of your posts where, you wake up maybe feeling a bit grumpy or off.
Yeah.
And then meditating and inquiring.
Totally.
I remember reading one a little while ago about that. Yeah. And so let's say you didn't leave your house all day, but you stayed in this embodiment of clarity and fully accepting any emotions that were there. So it might not be light.
Yeah.
But it's rich.
It's rich. That's very well said. It's rich. All right.
It's rich.
Might not be light. Yeah, no, and you're totally right. Like this week, I'll be honest with you, had some of the most debilitating anxiety of my entire life, which is, it's okay. It's totally okay. It's not fun, but, and I know where it's coming from. Like I feel like I'm tapping into, the collective on how heavy it is right now, how much pain and suffering there is in the world right now, how much darkness, how much illusion, how much, and so tapping into that and really becoming aware of it, which is, I seek that out. I want to know what's going on. I want to fully understand, what's going on and what the problem space looks like, because that, becoming aware of the darkness improves and expands my capacity for light. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, beautiful.
Right? Yeah. So, but that requires me going into the darkness. And so that's kind of on the macro level, but it happens in the micro level personally as well. The more you can go into your own darkness and explore those dark corners of your soul, again, with compassion and love and curiosity, the more that it releases those holds on you, and the more you can expand into your light and your brightness and shine your light and live in that light space. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And we have the tools now, like the resources and the tools to meet, in particular, trauma. Like we brought up the word trauma.
Yeah, it's huge.
So for anyone listening, I don't want to give the impression that this is something that you can do on your own now.
Right.
Like getting support and learning how to resource ourselves. I'm doing this because touch is one of the fastest ways to send a signal of safety to your brain. So we get out of that stress response and into that more coherent state.
Yeah.
So we have the tools of how to resource ourselves as we're meeting this trauma and all of this.
Totally.
And yes, and then we can shine. And I love what Gabor Mate says. I love Gabor Mate so much.
He's genius.
He's genius. And he says any trauma that we can see, we can heal.
Yes.
Any trauma that you can become aware of, you can heal it. And those words are so encouraging.
Totally.
And then letting the light. It's like sometimes we can be so loyal to our sadness and our trauma and that's like, I'm not allowed to be happy. Well, I have to sad.
You become attached to it.
My teacher said that to me one day. He's like, I was trying to tell him something and I was like shutting him out so I could go back into a dark place.
Yeah.
And he's like, sad. And I was like, oh my God.
Calling you out on it. I love it. It's so true. We get identified with our sadness or our anger or our fear or whatever it is. And so moving beyond that and letting it go is terrifying, because again, the question, if I'm not this angry, sad person, who am I? Right.
Yeah.
And that's terrifying. So so many people would rather hang on to their anger or their sadness because it's familiar, even though it's uncomfortable and painful, rather than move out of it into the unknown.
To keep that identity.
To keep the identity,
story
because
intact.
Keep the story intact, and it's an illusion of safety, right?
Yeah.
Wow, we're covering some huge ground here.
I know, right?
Awesome.
So good.
So good. So good to see you. So I'm curious, like, more about your journey. So how did you end up where you are servicing clients? Like, what is your practice? What are you doing?
Yeah. So shortly after that retreat, which was obviously a pivotal point for me, I was already back at work. So the twins were one. They were just one when I met them, when I met Gangaji and Eli.
Right.
But when I came back from that retreat, very quickly after that, I left my job. Like, it was just this deep, very deep awareness of like, okay, I can't pursue anything that isn't really authentic anymore.
And in full alignment.
Even though it was terrifying. Like, it was letting go of a title.
Yeah.
That had a lot of status and benefits. The hook, like the hooks were very easy to see at that point. And I also knew that this coming into mindfulness and back to meditation and diving into this understanding, this self-recognition was totally where my heart was at.
Yes.
And so I started writing, and then people started asking, do you do sessions? And I was like, well, I mean, I could meet with you. And so for a year, I met with people by donation.
Awesome.
Just to listen and talk. And I was so connected to these, just this awareness. I don't even want to say teachings, because there's no teaching. It's really just cutting through to what's the motivation right now in this moment.
Totally.
Are you trying to get something? Are you trying to hide from something?
Yeah.
Or are you just fully here?
Yeah.
And then it kind of grew. I started teaching mindfulness classes in Golden here. So this was in 2015.
Cool.
And then I went to Ashland, Oregon, and did Eli's 2-year program.
Oh, wow.
Which
Okay.
is in like Enneagram and clinical hypnotherapy, actually.
Wow. Amazing.
But it's all using self-inquiry. It's all rooted in self-inquiry. So it's really working with the client, and all the resources are within the client.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. They have all the answers.
They have all the answers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's how I look at it. And for me, that's what coaching is holding up the mirror so they can see their blind spots and asking them the difficult questions that other people won't ask them, and then holding them accountable for what they say they want, And
Yes. Yes, that's it. And that question, what do you want?
Yeah.
Eli will ask that, and Gangaji too. They ask that question, what do you want?
Yeah.
And for me, that brings such a focused inquiry of if there is any egoic want happening, I can call myself on that.
Yeah.
I can say, oh, I want approval.
Yeah.
In some way, I'm wanting approval. And then it's like, what do I want even more than that? It's like, I want to be self-approved.
Yes. Self-anointed.
Yeah. And then there's no neediness leaking out.
Yes. Wow. Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah. So my coaching practice kind of built around that. And I actually did another counseling program here in British Columbia. And I just finished that last summer.
Cool.
Just to add to the skills. And because I am working with a lot of people with trauma and pretty intense pretty intense depression, anxiety, PTSD, that kind of thing.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's incredible, by the way. Thank you for all the work you're doing in the world.
Oh,
How do you manage to keep grounded, because you're taking on a lot of heavy energy, right? So do you have a practice to sort of release that or come back to center? What do you do to stay grounded?
well, truthfully, this was one of the other reasons I got in touch with you.
Awesome. I love this. Raw, authentic. This is it. Straight up. No filters.
Yeah, I mean, it's always changing. I think I have to be so aware of tuning into what's here, how I'm feeling, and huge self-care.
Yes.
Like I get up in the morning and do yoga most mornings.
Right.
And I meditate every day, once or twice a day at least.
Right. And you have to schedule that because you're busy. You got to schedule that in,
I get up at 6. Like I get up before the kids get up.
There you go.
And do that. And then, what I eat and drink. I'm careful of. I still have 1 cup of coffee in the morning. But everything else is I'm running the machine very clean. And that goes a long way in how just how I can hold all of that and watching what I'm holding too, because I can be a bit of a reservoir of my own emotions and other people's. So
totally. Me too.
I cry.
Good for you.
Like so often I'll drop the kids off at school and come home and I mean, we're laughing about it now, but I do. It's like that emotion I don't even know what it is often, but it can feel like the world's grief. And I have to let it out. Otherwise I'm just cranky. Yeah.
Good for you. And recognizing that and allowing yourself to feel it and let that energy flow through you, even if it's challenging or painful, Again, people want to close off. They don't want to feel that or that painful emotion. And they don't want to look weak in front of other people or, and so they don't do it. And then they bottle it up. And then what happens? It manifests in other ways that are unhealthy, like disease or addiction or depression or an accident or something.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Or just being off for the rest of the day. Or just
being off. Yeah. Or low energy, anything. Yeah.
Low energy. And then you get a headache and you think you actually have a headache. So you take a Tylenol and like it's
slippery slope.
Yeah. And what about you, Pat? I know that we probably we could go on forever, but I want to know, what are you doing to keep yourself centered and grounded?
Yeah, the same as you. I have like a non-negotiable practice where it's scheduled in every day. I meditate, I journal, I have some sort of movement. Most often days it's surfing, which is beautiful because it's also a communion with nature. It's great exercise and I'm in the sun, I'm in the water. It's just a beautiful way to get that into my routine. But those are my main practices: journaling, meditation, movement, and then obviously eating, as I don't drink alcohol anymore, which is awesome.
Amazing.
Really strict.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. It's that was a big part of my life for a long time. And now it's like, it's not like, I never said I'd never drink again. It's just, I feel so good. Why would I ever want to cloud that with something as boring as alcohol? I know what it gets me. I know where it goes, and most often in the later stages anyway, it was 3 days of hangover and depression and eating shitty food. It's like, I don't want to waste my life doing that anymore. I have too many important things to do, And so I want to show up with my A game every day. That's another thing that a friend told me. He's like, when I was first getting off of alcohol, or thinking about it anyway, he had done it like 2 years earlier. I'm like, dude, how did you do it? He's like, I wanted to show up with my A game every day and not miss a day. I'm like, you're right. I'm not showing up with my A game. Maybe I have it once a week, but what would happen? How good could I get? How much positive impact could I have? How many people could I affect if I had my A game every day? And so that's what motivates me to ground and to center every morning, because then I can operate from that place of grounded, a foundation of wholeness, and move into that world that way. And then people can feel that energy regardless of what I'm doing, whether it's a post or performing music or just having a conversation. They can tune into that energy, whether they realize they're doing it or not. See, even unconsciously, they can feel a grounded presence in me that they're like, holy shit, that might invite them to take the next step in their journey. Right. And so it's constantly rippling outward from that centered foundation that I cultivate every morning.
What a beacon. You are such a beacon of light. It's so beautiful. And you faced so much of why you needed to numb out. Like, it sounds like you've done the work. You're doing the work.
It's an ongoing process.
Yeah,
Definitely. Definitely. But thank you. Yes, it has been. And you as well. Like Laura, I felt in you, when we connected many, many years ago, the depth of your connection to source, just so true and beautiful. And it came through in your voice and that performance when we recorded. It was like, wow, this is a powerful woman. And we had a moment where, our souls saw each other and on some deep level, and it's been 20 plus years since we've connected. So this is such an honor and a pleasure just to be with you in this space. And let's continue this conversation. I think this is just the beginning for us, to help each other out and move into the world more powerfully in collaboration.
Yes, I'd love to. And that feels so nourishing and
awesome.
Yeah. So that's really wonderful. So good to see you too.
So good to see you. Not to put you on the spot more than I already have by jumping this podcast on you, but would you be open to sharing your voice in some way, like with a song, maybe?
I'm laughing. I'm like, oh gosh.
So what's coming up for you right now? Is it super triggering?
No, it's not super triggering. It's more like, what have I got? Right off the.
Well, what do you got? And listen, it's totally cool if it's not in alignment for you right now. We can do it another day. Tune in. There is something there, but it feels like it needs a bit of time. Okay, fair enough.
But I touched something that was like, yeah. So awesome. Thank you for that invitation.
And my pleasure. And thank you for being honest with yourself and with me.
Yes.
And honoring where you're at,
Yeah, and I'm excited for when that comes out.
Beautiful. Yes, so am I. I can't wait. Because you do have a beautiful voice and you channel source so beautifully. So Laura Shaw, wow, what an honor it's been to reconnect with you. And again, I feel like this is just the beginning of more collaboration. And so do you want to let people know where they can find you?
Yeah, please reach out. I love to hear where people are at on their journey and how this conversation, if you've listened to this, any insights or questions, or I'd love to hear from you. And I know you would too. Mm-hmm. So my website is probably the easiest starting point, and it's just laurapshaw.com.
Okay.
So www.laurapshaw.com. And yeah, and you can find me through there. That's probably the quickest route.
Excellent. I will, of course, put that all in the show notes. I have one more question before I let you go, and this is what I like to ask my guests right at the end. If you took all of your learnings, all your wisdom learned, all your knowledge, all your experience, and you distilled it down into one message or one sentence, what would it be?
All there is love.
Aho. Beautiful. Laura Shaw, thank you so much for spending this time with us today. Super appreciate you. See you. Thank you for all the work you're doing in the world, all the healing you're facilitating. You're amazing.
And likewise. Thank you so much.
We'll talk to you soon. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.